This movie was banned in Canada and several jurisdictions until it got a wide release at drive-ins pretty well in the early 1970s, a year to 2 years after its official release. But my God, when it hit the screens, it was an underground sensation and brought together, of course, that great horror team of Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing for yet again another successful denouement or movie. Now, I, Monster is a 1971 British horror film directed by Stephen Weeks, his feature debut for what was called at the time Amicus Productions. It is an adaptation of Robert Louis Stevenson's 1886 novella, Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, with the main characters' names changed to Dr. Charles Marlowe and Mr. Edward Blake. Now, Christopher Lee in this one looks like, well, you might as well say it, a rolled over Keith Moon after a 4-day bender. Now in this one, psychologist Marlowe, played by Lee, invents a drug which will release his patient's inhibitions. When he tests it on himself, he becomes the evil Edward Blake, who descends into crime and eventually murder. Utterson Cushing, Marlowe's lawyer, believes that Blake is blackmailing his friend until he discovers the truth. Now, besides Lee and Cushing, Mike Raven plays Enfield, Richard Hurndall as Lanyard, George Merritt as Poole, Kenneth J. Warren as Dean, Susan Jameson as Diane, Marjorie Lawrence as Annie, Amy Delamain as Landlady, and Michael DeBars, you know who I'm talking about here, scum of the earth, as Boyne Alley. Now, again, this stars Christopher Lee as a doctor and his alter ego, and Peter Cushing as Frederick Utterson, a central character in Stevenson's original story. Mike Raven and Susan Jameson also have great parts. It was photographed by Maury Grant with music by Carl Davis. Now, Peter Duffel, who had previously worked for Amicus, was offered a movie to direct, but turned it down. Now, get this, financing came from the Great British Line and the NFFC. Now, it was intended to be shown in 3D utilizing the Pulfric effect, but the idea was abandoned upon release. Now, it was fully released in November 71 UK, and like I said, only a full US in April 1973, and it was shown at various drive-ins across Canada in that Hyde summer of 73, where a lot of movies were being fully released. Now, running time varies between 75 and 81 minutes, and 81 minutes is, of course, the intended cut. Unfortunately, the film performed poorly at the box office, despite the fact Lee and Cushing back together. However, recent reviews have praised the film for its faithful direction from the source material, with Drew Hunt of the Chicago Reader listing as one of Lee's 5 best roles, and I tend to agree. It's quite good. When I first saw it, boys, it freaked me right out because I'm saying, well, this is not Dr. Jekyll, but it's pretty close. Now, apart from changing the names of the character Henry Jekyll, Edward Hyde, to Charles Marlowe and Edward Blake, as well as changing the character to a Freudian psychotherapist instead of a doctor, the story is fairly faithful to the original novella. The final act, however, is changed. In the original, Utterson and Poole smashes Jekyll's door to find the body of Hyde dead by suicide, after Jekyll has failed to keep Hyde in check. In the film, Blake kills Poole for fearing he would divulge his secret, and goes on to fight Utterson, who, however, resists, and accidentally kills Blake by pushing him down the stairs. Blake's face transforms to Marlowe's, while Utterson's and his maid stare in shock. And again, special effects of this are tremendous. And a lot of future British movies where they had to have a horror motif use the very interesting makeup for this. But you can see in the photos I'm presenting here, there was a big resemblance between a Keith Moon style of facial visage and Christopher Lee. And ironically, I think Oliver Reed said that Lee was drinking buddies with the Borum at some time in their background. But the British horror motif, how it worked with this, Cushing's character would always find a way to knock off Lee's character, going back to the Dracula movies and everything else. But Cushing and Lee, my God, what a pair. One of the greatest screen duos in movie history, and not even what they call romantic. Anytime there's a Cushing and Lee movie, it was always something special. And here, it was a quick story, but it's, like I said, well put together. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's our latest in our podcast on some of the early 1970s horror movies. We're going to be talking about The Invaders, the Alien TV show, and some old film noir. It's going to be kind of thriller month for the second half of November. We hope you enjoy it. And if you have a chance to watch any Christopher Lee movie, Peter Cushing is in it. It loses star, but you put Cushing and Lee together. My God, ladies and gentlemen, what a treat. What an honor it is to even do this podcast, celebrating two of the greatest cerebral horror minds of all time. Thanks for listening. Bye.